Welcome to the Webinar Hacker Podcast, where we decode the craft of digital communications for virtual leaders and ambitious professionals. I'm Diego Laje. Today, I'm joined by Veronica Llorca-Smith. If you're on LinkedIn, you've likely seen her brilliant stories blending real-world experience with sharp business insight. Veronica's journey takes her from Spain to Hong Kong and from corporate leadership to championing authentic storytelling in global business. If you're looking to make your next webinar or online presentation truly engaging and to find the strategy behind the story, this episode is for you. Veronica Llorca-Smith, thank you so much for joining. Great having you.
I'm excited to be here. Hello, good morning, good evening from Hong Kong, where I am.
Yeah, you're from Spain, you live in Hong Kong, and you tell business stories. And something that really amazes me is I follow your Substack, right? And you have this power to turn everyday stories into business insights. How does that happen?
So this is what I noticed after being in the corporate world for so many years, and is that we either tend to do one of those two things. We either go straight into the technical aspect of things, and then we take the human element out, and that way we become like bots, or we go on the other side of the spectrum and we just tell stories, personal stories, but that way we become very personable, but we lose a little bit the credibility that comes with the technical aspect of things. What I try to do is to merge both aspects, meaning the technical side of things and the personal storytelling. And so, a little strategy that I encourage public speakers to use is to find a story, a personal story that is going to give you that connection with the audience, but also bring the business insights into it. To give you an example, and then we can continue the conversation. The other day, I talked about my experience living in China. So I've been living in China, doing business in China. And so there was a bit of storytelling there on what
I
I've learned.
saw that post in Mexico.
Yes. And in that
No,
storytelling,
no,
what
I really follow you. No, no kidding.
so it's really okay. That was a test. That was a
Yeah,
test.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so
And I passed with flying colors. I know.
and so you start with that story of something that's personal, that you've lived, that it's really first-hand experience. It's not Claude, it's not ChatGPT, it's Veronica. But then I connected with business insights. So what did I learn? And that's where I'm really tapping into my business experience and the technical aspect of things. So tip number one is try to merge these two things: the personal storytelling of I've lived this, I've been there, but then what does that mean for you as a company if you want to do business in China?
Yeah, I that part we all get. The problem is, first, how do you build the story, right? A lot of people ask me, "Yeah, that's great. I want to, put myself out there and share a little bit of myself and talk about me." Uh, but the question is this, and this question I get time and again. Do you first think of the business lesson that you want to convey, or the business message you want to convey, and then you go to your personal archive of stories and you bring up something that will match that desired uh business comment that you want to make? Or do you find the business wisdom in your life? How is it?
So I'm a business girl, right? So when I go on LinkedIn, I'm there because I want to make business, but I want to make business the right way. And so let's go back to that specific example because I think it's going to clarify. I go into LinkedIn with the purpose of I want to sell webinars and sessions and consultancy to businesses.
Yeah,
In this case, particularly, it's business that want to grow in China, and I want
yeah.
to sell my expertise. So I start with the end goal in mind because we're talking about strategy, and then from there, I reverse engineer and I start tapping into parts of my personal and my professional journey and what are some stories that can be relevant. So I think the stories, they are more to serve your business goals and to support their accessories that are going to help you get to your business goals, because otherwise then we become a storyteller and it might land somewhere but it might not be the place that we want to go. And so I put back my business hat I have an
Yeah.
objective, and then you have stories that you have to have your repertoire of stories there to help you build that credibility and achieve that goal.
I have two major questions here. First, repertoire. Do you like think ahead, maybe write something, prepare something to be able to have a repertoire, on hand?
So that's question number one. I'm a writer and I'm an author. So for me, my writing is out there, it's public. And so if I do a search on my website or I can do a search on my Substack, for example, I will have tons of stories because I've published over 500. That's me because I'm a writer. That's what I do. If you're not writing in public, which I still recommend, I think everyone should put
Yeah.
themselves out there. But if you don't do that, I do recommend that you have some type of system. Some people journal. You can have a software like Notion, for example, to help you organize stories. But I do think that is important to have some type of way of documenting those stories because otherwise you forget them.
Great. So one thing from journalism, never ask two questions together because you get one answer for two questions. Never do that. That's why question number two is okay. Um, so you want to land in a specific, you want to produce a specific business um, consequence. You're strategic. You want to produce an outcome. Sorry, that's the word that's lacking here. Um, how do you test or see if the material you're going to use will actually produce the outcome? And I'm pulling in from, for example, stand-up comedians. Before we hear a joke from them, they tested the joke over and over and over again with different audiences. How do you know if that story will land exactly where you want it to land? How do you test it?
So, as a creator, because I also consider myself a creative, I have a creative business, and so I test on many different platforms. And
Mhm.
what I do, to give you another very specific example, last week I did a LinkedIn Live.
Yeah,
And I started, it was co hosted with another public speaker, and we
yeah.
started to talk about public speaking, fears, and so on. My goal with that particular session was to get people to follow me, to subscribe to my newsletter, and ideally buy my new course, which talks about public speaking. And so, what
Yes.
I personally do is I'm constantly testing. I like to see my work as a digital laboratory. And when I have a story, for example, that I see that resonates a lot, then I double down on that story and I really try to see, okay, how can I go further with that? But I do agree with you that we're constantly testing. In my case, I test with live sessions, I test with webinars for my own community. And if I see that something really resonates, then I repackage it and I sell it in the B2B space. So I think it's important to have this mindset of we're constantly testing. Some things will go well and you pursue them, but some won't, and then you drop them. So for example, going deeper into this topic, I never create a product, whether it's B2B or B2C, without having had these multiple tests where I've sent a newsletter, I have done multiple social media, I even A/B test the titles, for example, to see what resonates more.
Okay, so you test, and retest, right? The problem we have is that many of the people who many of the marketers really have very few opportunities to iterate on a specific title, on way of delivering stuff, and etc. Which suggestions do you have for creating those opportunities to iterate, if not with exactly your target audience, because you don't, sometimes it could be small, or it could be you could be compromising your professionalism and the way you look. Which opportunities are the ones that have paid off best for you for testing, for being creative and not taking risks or unnecessary risks?
Yes. So I'm going to take the conversation, if that's okay, in a very different direction.
Please.
And one of the things that has worked for me is to build my own community.
Okay.
We talked about Substack. Not everyone might be aware of it. It's a platform basically where you can host your own newsletters, but it's also a platform that has a social media embedded, meaning strangers can see you, they can follow you, they can see your content, and then you bring them into your community. What has
Yeah.
worked really well for me is to have this community. To give you a sense of scale, right now is 10,000 people. Out of these 10,000 people, I have a small number, around 200, that are paid. So these are
Yeah.
people who are very close to me, they're very loyal readers, and they give me feedback. And having like this group of people, whether you have a newsletter or however you find this close group of people that can really give you feedback on whether they like this, whether they think that is going to work. Right now, for example, I just launched a new course, and the first 10 customers are actually from that group of people, from this sample group of people. And so creating
Yeah.
this safe space that is yours, that you already have people who trust you, who can very openly tell you, hey, Veronica, I think this title doesn't work as well, or maybe you should consider adding this type of content. So if you're able to create that own community where you can test without the business risk of going to businesses, for example, then that's something that I definitely recommend. There's also the plus of you start to build your brand. And so you are known as Diego, the news anchor, Veronica, the creator, it might be Phil, the engineer. So whatever that is, it really helps you with your brand as well.
And here I have a number of questions that I won't ask altogether, as you very well know by now. Um, they're putting together a B2B um, webinar, video product, so on. What is how do you bridge the gap between, the general exchange, and I'm thinking about probably for many of our viewers, listeners, the sales pitch, right? Because they're salesman. How do you bridge that and not repeat exactly what you say, live, and make it into an engaging visual digital product?
So, if we're talking specifically webinars, let's say to make it more
Yeah.
visible, for me, one of the things that works extremely well is the co creation with the audience. Of course, it depends on the size, but even when you have a huge audience, you can still find opportunities to engage your audience. For me, long gone are the days of I'm going to give you a lecture and then it's just 45 minutes speaking and people ask questions. I really, really try to stay away from it. And so I create opportunities for people to really be able to tell me what they think about a specific point. And so how I do this, so let's talk a little bit
Yes.
about technology. I love having chats. I have polls, and then based on the poll result, we will pause there. Hey, someone said yes to this question. Okay. And I try to get the audience to interact. Something that works very well in with audiences that are less vocal, and this might happen in, for example, where I am in Asia, but also certain professions. IT generally, they speak less. They are very good
Yeah.
with technology, and so I try to bring in things like word cloud, for example, so that instead of having an awkward silence when you're asking a question, people have the opportunity to participate. And so that's what I mean by co-creation. Very often is me trying to engage the audience in a way that they participate and that is not just me sharing. It takes a lot
Yeah.
of practice because you have to be comfortable with silence. You have to be the type of person who really makes people feel comfortable. And the beginning of the session is going to be critical for that because the last thing that you want is just a silent room. But for me personally, that has been the key to making those webinars engaging and different from the pitch where it's me, just me speaking live, because it's a different format, it's a different type of engaging people.
And Veronica, one thing you do constantly, and you do it very well, given the fact that I've pretty much follow you. I don't follow you; I stalk you. That should be the better way to this describe how I follow you. Um, you are constantly putting material out to keep this engagement going all the time, right? It could be social, it could be your Substack newsletter, could be other stuff. I'm receiving all the time fresh stuff from you. Um, for many, it's very hard to keep up producing material, quality material. Do you have any AI tool that you use to help you produce or distribute or have the reach you do have?
So this is going to be a bit embarrassing, but I do most of it myself. To be honest, I use AI as a tool to help me with ideas, or for example, if I want to know about trends. So it's more helping me incubate. But
Yeah.
really, the writing, I'm a writer, I'm an author, so that's how I really enjoy. I take a lot of joy and pride in that process. So I don't really use AI for that. But what I do use that helps me a lot is this idea of repurposing content. What I mean by this, and it goes back to the testing idea. I write a post on social media, might be on LinkedIn and or on Substack, my main platforms. If that short post, short content goes well, I turn it into an article. So from a
Mhm.
short one, we go into a long one. Still same idea, but I'm developing it. What happens if that long post does really well? I'm like, well, maybe here I have enough material to serialize it. And instead of just one article about doing business in China, now I can have 10 lessons about doing business in China, which I can very well do, bring in my storytelling. So now from one short post, we have a newsletter, we're serializing 10. What happens after those 10 issues have been published? That can become an ebook or a digital guide, but it can also become a LinkedIn Live, it can become a masterclass. And so try to test small. And what works, you can really start to repurpose and turn one product into 8 different ones, for example.
I get it. I get it. So scale up or down according to the content performance and how it resonates with your specific audience.
And the format, you can use different formats. Yeah, this week I sent one article that was about publishing books. Today I'm going live in Spanish to talk about the same thing, but in a live. It feels completely different
Mhm.
because it's two formats completely different.
Strangely enough, we both speak Spanish. I don't follow you in Spanish. I don't know. But yeah. I read that headline, but I didn't I was unaware of your live today. I would have probably leveraged that. Um, before I let you go, um, what are the 2, 3 key things that you would recommend someone starting out who wants to actually perform on lives, perform on camera, uh, 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 and just to forward, their careers and probably their sales performance. Which are the 2, 3 keys for webinars or online video presentations?
So I don't want to give the advice that has been given again and again of how you make
Mm.
the first impression and things like this. I really want to share something that has helped me personally and that I've never heard anyone tell you. If you've never spoken before on camera or live, it's very, very intimidating. And so pick a topic that you feel so comfortable that no one can question you, no one can challenge you. That tends to
Mhm.
be your personal story. So don't worry about the technical aspect or selling something. Really find a show. If you're, for example, an engineer, they might have a podcast that features every week a different engineer where they tell their story. When you tell your own story, you feel very empowered and you feel very confident because you own it. No one can tell that story better than you. And so pick that topic. For me, it tends to be my personal story, how I reinvented myself coming from the corporate world into becoming a solopreneur. But pick that one topic that is really going to help you. So that would be the number one. And then the number two, it's very simple, but again, it really works. Start very small. My first podcast was only me. There wasn't even a co-host, and it was pre-recorded by myself in a garage in Australia, and I pre-recorded it 5 times before I sent it. That's how small I started. Today I speak for Fortune 500 companies. There's been 2 years and over 100 presentations and podcasts and lives in between. But find that small thing, small step that you can do, because that's going to propel you to the next and the next and the next. It's really a journey.
Great. Veronica Llorca-Smith, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for being a part of this webinar hacker series.
Thank you, Diego.
Blend personal stories with business insights. Merge authentic personal experiences with technical expertise to engage audiences and build credibility. Test, iterate, and repurpose. Approach your content like a digital lab. Test ideas on different platforms and formats. Then double down and repurpose what resonates. Start small and own your story. Begin with topics you know deeply and feel confident about. Even small steps on camera build experience and lead to bigger opportunities. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Webinar Hacker. I want to thank Veronica Llorca-Smith for sharing her practical wisdom and energy with us today. If you found this conversation valuable, don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with your network, and join our mission to make virtual communication impactful. Thanks for being with us. Until next time.